And this is awkward because the graphic for the interview decided to not show up. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. And that is the wrong one because it shouldn't have my face on it. Whoopsie doodle. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have one returning good brother and one newcomer into the temple. As part of the double-headed monster that is Gravedigger's Harvest, which we'll be getting into tonight. In the red corner, making his return to the monastery, Josh Rosing of Lone Colossus Games, and making their debut in my monastery, Andie Margolskee. I apologize if I got your last name mispronounced.
Hey, no, it's pretty close.
Yeah, something, horseshoes and hand grenades, but I'll take it. I've had to deal with some certain Polish names that no matter what I do, I can never get it right. Then again, Polish as a language is the hard mode of European languages, so mulligan.
Yeah, people like to add a lot of extra syllables to the middle of my last name, so I get like Margoleskee a lot, which, is worse than what you said, which I think was basically right.
Mm-mm.
So,
but it could be worse. It could be some of those weird name conventions I've seen in Arabic where you have whole words just for talking to two people. So, grading on a curve here. But with that said, how are you two doing tonight? I know in Josh and I's neck of the woods it is a blustery evening.
it's pretty nice here. I live in Seattle, so it's pretty sunny, not too chilly, and I just got back from a trip to North Carolina where I was filming an actual play. So I'm a little bit sort of jet lagged and trying to wrangle my brain back into gear, but I'll get there.
Mm-hmm. That's what the lasso's for.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Like you said, it's chilly here. Finally able to close the door on my office in the basement and let my computer warm it up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe overclock the computer if need be.
If it gets that cold, I'll turn the heater on.
Oh, yeah, I can get that. But with that said, getting into Gravedigger Harvest proper. First off, congratulations on managing to get this thing funded so quickly, because it opened up, I believe, at 11 a.m. this morning, and it's already well past its funding goal.
Yep.
Did you clock in how long it took approximately?
Somewhere between like 2.5 and 3 hours, I think.
Which is fair. By the time I got home from my usual meditations, it was already not only funded but past the line. So, if I'm if my memory serves, this is the first full-on module that has been made under the Lone Colossus banner. The last few projects were mechanical expansions mainly. There was Injuries and Vile Deeds, which was a dark fantasy grab bag, and the Tomes of Intangible Treasures, which, well, the name kind of says it all.
Yeah, this is the first adventure that I've crowdfunded. I've published a couple on Drive-Thru before, and Andie, who's actually doing the narrative writing and everything for this, has done quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I haven't counted how many I've worked on, but it's more than a handful, less than a wagon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you have 6 in your last book alone, so.
Well, okay, yeah, I mean, if we're counting that way, then I'm probably at something like 20. I'm not sure.
So, in that regard, I have to ask this dumb joke every time I have two people on the show at once. Which one of you is the abbot and which one of you is the Costello?
I don't know if I have a good point of reference for that.
Me neither.
Yeah, they can't all be winners. But now, with that said, this is a mystery adventure that is firmly within the dark fantasy camp. How did the idea for Gravedigger's Harvest really get started?
I guess probably at its super early stage, it was one of the stretch goals for Tome of Intangible Treasures 2 was to make some hunts and include those adventures with the book as a sort of companion to it. We didn't get to those during that campaign, but I still wanted to do an adventure and try it out on Kickstarter. Asked Andie about collaborating on it, and we started kind of working through the details from there. I don't know if do you remember how we got to this specific idea?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about where the idea specifically started. The short version, and I'm happy to give a longer version, but the short version was essentially we got on a call without sort of any specific idea of what we were going to make this module. And I just started talking, pulling on my background as a climate scientist and my sort of penchant for mystery writing, and started thinking through some options where I was like, well, we could do a city, we could do, some sort of forest adventure. What kind of adventure would you be interested in? I would be interested in something that subverts some tropes. And so it started, I think, with the very simple idea of bodies being stolen from graves, but not from above ground. They were being stolen from below. And then from there, we just sort of chased questions of what is stealing their bodies? Why are they stealing their bodies? And that's how we came up with this sort of smog that coats the whole town of Gillicksburg, that the residents breathe in, and it crystallizes in their lungs, and it becomes this material that these creatures harvest from the dead bodies of people in town.
Yeah, there was
and they
a
all
lot of
live in these tunnels. Yeah,
there was a lot of there's some really great advice on world building, which is to go 3 questions deep or something. It's you have a reason for it, or you have a thing. It's okay, why is this thing real? Okay, well, because of this. Why is that real? Because of this. And once you've gotten down that far, usually you can stop there and your players will never see past it. But I think we went pretty well past that and really have a very kind of solid ecosystem, right, for everything being tied together, and why everything kind of has that underlying explanation of why it is that way in this little setting that sort of been making. So
Now, because you're new here, Andy, I do kind of have to put you on the spotlight for one of my traditions, and that is the origin story, the humble beginnings. As Josh knows, I do this with everybody. I did this with him his first time in the monastery. So I'd like you to walk me through your first introduction to role-playing games as a whole and what made it stick.
Oh, let's see. It depends on what counts. So
Everything is on the table.
sure. No, I know. I was just the very first sort of D&D-esque games that I played, I didn't even know were D&D at the time, which were all of the like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Planescape, Torment, all the like CRPGs when I was a kid. I just played all of them and had no idea that they were D&D. Didn't actually play the sort of real like tabletop RPG of D&D until I think I had started my PhD. So maybe about 10 years ago, I played maybe my first game of D&D. But that campaign fizzled quickly. And then I didn't play again until about 3-4 years ago. After having watched like all of the Dimension 20 and like the Adventure Zone Balance. And so I just got really into the thing that I didn't know was that D&D was so improv heavy. I thought that it was more of a war game coming into it, especially since the people that I had known who had played D&D really approached it like a war game. And I may get some flack for this, but I really like tactical games, but I like them when they're video games and I don't have to carry as much of the overhead in my brain. And I'm less interested in sort of the crunch of a tactics game on tabletop. And I'm much more interested in like weird. Yeah.
You're not going to get any flack here because, well, for one, over the years I've seen all manner of the spectrum on every end of it, from the very light story games to the games that go beyond the crunch of a war game and into full on heavy simulationism. So you're in good company here.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, it's funny. With mysteries, I actually like writing them and running them more than I like being a player in them because I'm so particular about their structure. Because there are so many problems that people run into with mystery writing where it's like there has to be one specific solution and then you hit a dead end or they didn't get a clue or they haven't pieced together the clues or whatever. And people just don't build in enough redundancies to give you the actual flexibility to solve it however you want. So that's sort of how I got into writing mysteries in general, which is I don't like how people do it, so I'm going to do it myself.
it's always a good reason to start doing something. So
there is plenty of precedent when it comes to that. Speaking from my own personal experience, but sometimes I've asked people about a appendix ends, but since we're dealing with mystery, are there any authors who stand out to you as early influences when it came to your style of writing mystery in general?
Early influences. I think that I sort of fell into it. I didn't realize until I was looking back in retrospect that every campaign or every adventure that I had run and enjoyed, I was sort of latching onto the mystery elements of it. So when I think about like D&D campaign structure, for instance, one of my core references is actually Doctor Who, which is not a mystery show, but the structure of their season arcs lets you have sort of the villain lurking in the background, some sort of mastermind, and then each episode contributing some small clue or hint or whatever to the overarching season story. And I've always been obsessed with that kind of story structure. And Doctor Who's not the only show that does it. There are many.
And when it comes, I know it'd be tempting for someone to say, "Oh, Doctor Who's not a mystery series," but the thing with Doctor Who as a whole is that it defies genre description, because because whatever genre it feels like dipping into, it will, and has for decades. Like I've stated, the Matt Smith era is far more of a fairy tale than some of the more space operatic elements of, say, the Tennant era. And I'm vastly simplifying, but the point is that it is something that can handle mysteries, and in fact, during the Pertwee era, it went full spy fiction, because that was the thing at the time.
Yeah, when I was working on my first Kickstarter, which was a murder mystery campaign, I was reading Agatha Christie and watching movies like Knives Out, and just sort of collecting all of the murder mystery references that I could get, and that was very fun. So I should probably add those to the pile. Knives Out, especially the sort of intricate, almost Rube Goldberg machine version of a mystery, is very fun to me.
Yeah. It is very amusing to see somebody like Daniel Craig trying to do Southern drawl, but I'd say it's the benefit of having a proper accent coach, because like when most people hear like Christian Bale's real accent, they don't think it's him. His natural accent is far more UK Cockney.
I did not know that.
I only knew about it because of an interview I happened to come across where he was speaking in his natural accent. I'm like, wait, that's him? And he's admitted that even his kids don't believe it when he uses it. Like they're so used to hearing how he talks in his various movies that when he uses his natural accent, his kids don't believe that's him. So,
oh man.
So, I guess the best way to describe it is a very northern accent, almost Geordie. If you're not familiar with Geordie, is the name given to people who are in the area around Newcastle upon Tyne.
Okay, sure.
But given the fact that we're dealing with a mystery and the fact that you do have to do a bunch of contingencies and redundancies, were things like game books part of the research pile as well, since they do a lot of redundancies in those things?
Yeah, I definitely reference before I sort of internalized it, I did a lot of referencing to the Alexandrian, the blog, where Justin Alexander has some really good articles about, especially the 3 clue rule, where, if anybody hasn't heard it before, it's, for anything that you want the players to deduce, there should be 3 different clues to getting it. And the sort of joke that follows is you need 3 clues because they'll miss the first one, misinterpret the second one, and get the third one right for the wrong reason.
There should really be another one where they destroy it, right?
Yeah. I would say that's missing it, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And
Like,
again,
oh, there was a detective here and we murdered him? I'm sure he didn't know anything important.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't also bring up adventure games, and specifically what Mandalore Gaming has called the Wheel of Madness with adventure games, where you do one certain thing wrong early on in the campaign, and you end up getting screwed over like 6 hours later.
Oh man.
Uh,
Yeah, I think about that a lot with like especially old school JRPGs where I remember playing games like Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger or whatever and wanting to get all the characters, and the only way to do that is by having like a game guide open so that you don't miss whatever obscure thing you have to do at the right time.
Mhm.
Like I always kind of
Yeah.
hated stuff like that because it just doesn't
with early
you know,
adventure
the
games, it
meaningful
was
decisions
worse.
are only meaningful if you know you're making a choice, you know?
Yeah.
That's giving me flashbacks to my first Fire Emblem game was it Path of Radiance? Whatever the second game in that particular
Radiant Dawn, which
pair
was
Radiant Dawn.
infamously unforgiving, even by Fire
And-
Emblem standards.
It was a lot of fun. I loved the game, but there's like a character that apparently you can get. There's a bunch of characters I didn't get. There's a character you can get that like he's like the prince of something or something. I don't know. It's been so long,
Mhm.
but like you can only get him by playing on like a harder difficulty setting and then making certain very specific choices in dialogue a few times. And I just remember like reading that, oh, you could have him as a character, and I was like, wait, but like I never got the option for him to join the party. It's not like I refused, it's just like never. So that was like that's probably my first experience of like, oh, this is just totally missable if you don't do exactly the right thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My own was early adventure games when I was very young. It is the reason why King's Quest has been my eternal whipping boy for most of my life. There's it that and some of the hidden character parameters in early fighting games in the 90s, or those cases where you get punished for being too good at the game. Looking at you, Akuma, and Geet. And Geets is something else. And the term that I ended up using for this kind of thing is hand braking. The opposite of hand holding. Because
Mhm.
for all of those, in order to overcome that particular puzzle, you either need some degree of foreknowledge, i.e. you've been there before, or a guide, which is probably why TV Tropes calls it Guide Damn It. But and would you say it's relatively easy or difficult to put yourself in a situation writing wise where you end up writing those corners or that idea of if the party messes with this one thing, then they're locked out?
I don't have that problem because I don't approach mysteries in that way. So one of the things that I like to do, for instance, is you put clues that people can get by just sort of walking around like, headless chickens. You put clues that people can find by being clever, and you put clues that are attached to an NPC or event or whatever that can't be missed.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorite solutions to this also is using scaling DC tables, where on a 0 to 5 you get a clue, whatever clue it is that you need to progress, right? So it doesn't matter what you roll, you will get a clue that progresses you. And then 6 to 10 is something interesting and potentially useful, gives you a lead. 11 to 15 is something that gives you like a solid answer where you're like, okay, this is gonna be very useful, I can follow that. And then 16 to 20 is usually like a secret reveal where it gives you a lead and something extra. And then whatever you roll, you get the whole table up to and including the result that you got. And that makes it basically impossible to have, rooms or locations or whatever become choke points where people can't progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's funny about the whole not progression thing is, are either of you familiar with the gumshoe system?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, same.
That's the system that powers things like Esoterrorists, Trail of Cthulhu, Night's Black Agents, and a few other games. But it was made by Kenneth Hitt, who's been on the show in the past, because he was frustrated with how like a failed roll ends up being a narrative stop in a lot of games, especially in game, and in some cases how you can just fail to know something even if you're supposed to be an expert in a given field. Like, imagine a physicist just not knowing the answer to a physics question because the player rolled low. Oh.
Yeah, totally.
Which that is an issue that can happen when you're dealing with RNG. How do you minimize the problem? Yeah, obviously you can't get rid of it, but you can minimize it.
You absolutely can get rid of it. You don't have people roll for things that they need. The table that I described has a result for 0 to 5, which has the mandatory information for progressing, right? So it's already baked into that decision.
So everything above that is just getting more bullet points.
Yeah, it'll let you, for instance, skip steps or get sort of advantages in combat and things like that, where, the more that you know about a situation, the easier it is to come up with clever solutions to bypass stuff or take advantage of knowledge that you have.
Yeah, you can also do things like, guarantee a certain level of success if you're proficient, right? So it's like, oh, anyone can make this check, but if you're proficient in investigation, maybe your minimum is like, the second tier of information or something, right?
Yeah, what instantly comes to mind is how I've tried to wean people off of abusing spot checks, even in games that don't have spot checks that I've run. Because if you're just rolling to look at the environments, that unless you've got sand in your eyes or something, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to fail that kind of roll.
And it's more interesting, I think, when players tell you where they're looking, right? If you kind of lose that engagement with the environment when you're just like, oh, we're in a room, all right, roll spot, I found whatever the thing was, versus like, oh, I'm gonna look under the table, I'm gonna look at this wall, or
that one person who's doing spot checks every 5-foot step because he's trying to check for traps on every single square.
That is how you used to have to do it. It was incredibly annoying.
Yeah, it was incredibly annoying. I blame Cook for that. That definitely seems like something he would have done back in the early 2000s. He had a very ivory tower attitude back then. He clearly doesn't have that now. But that was a thing of system mastery should be rewarded and system ignorance should be punished. His words. But given that, when it comes, I'm dancing around the finer details of Gravedigger's Harvest because I don't want to risk spoiling somebody down the road. But is it a case where you have certain parts in the adventure that are kind of all roads lead to Rome, i.e., regardless of the individual decisions, there are certain points you're going to be reaching?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say we had another call about this kind of shortly before the campaign. I guess 2 weeks ago, last week or something. Yeah, maybe 2 weeks ago. And we had this pinboard illustration that's on the campaign page and so we kind of worked through some of the like top level of clues and things that we would potentially be providing. Obviously, the pinboard's not going to be totally accurate, and might change things up. But it's that sort of idea of like everything. There's going to be a bunch of ways you can get to the final point, and you could miss a lot of things and get there. Maybe you just don't have all the context, but you'll get there, one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I use node-based design, which was another thing that I learned from the Alexandrian blog. I'm sure it is also described elsewhere, but all of the locations and the things that happen at them and the clues that you can find at any given location points to at least 2 to 3 other locations that you can go to, and the order in which you sort of do them and explore, it's not mandatory to do all of them. You just need 2 out of 3 or whatever the number is to collect enough clues to figure out where you have to go and what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. And since one of the things that GMs are going to dread is not knowing what the next direction is going to be unless they're doing a hex crawl where, well, that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I do a lot of I make flowcharts usually for GMs where, depending on what kind of adventure it is, everything on the flowchart are sort of the major beats of any adventure. So no matter where the players are or where you are in the adventure, you always sort of know what the next big step is, and you can, improv your way between some of the fiddly bits if you need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a term I ended up coming across that I shamelessly ended up stealing, because if you're gonna steal from the best, is tiers and tent poles. This was a term for the episode format for Gargoyles. The idea was because TV stations hated serialization back then, so this compromise was made of you can have these episodes in any order, but only between these specific episodes. Which it's a nice little parallel to that kind of thing. You have a overall direction, but the way you get there is up to you.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this adventure is going to lead you to, a villain. And I don't know. I guess you could team up with him if you wanted, or whatever.
Or team up with him only to do the Roman handshake.
Mm-hmm.
Lord knows.
Yeah, I could see some group of players trying to steal his rituals and stuff to use it for their own purposes.
Definitely not the heroic thing to do, but definitely something we discussed.
I had a player once who seemed to join the big bad only to shoot the big bad in the back, and his entire goal was just to get close enough to shoot him in the back.
That's fun.
And when everybody asked, "Why'd you just shoot him in the back if you're going to do that?" It's like, that's the safest place to shoot him. Basically, with the look of, "What did you think I was going to do, you idiot?" Because the whole time he was acting untrustworthy, and the normal thing to do would be to do a heel turn, but him and I conspired to invert that, i.e., the twist is there is no twist.
Yeah, one of the things about D&D is that it's it encompasses all of generic fantasy, right, and more. So there are no railings or whatever to keep people on any given path in terms of like heroic versus not, which is so different in comparison to something like Draw Steel, where they expect the players to be explicitly heroic.
Yeah, but I've been covering Draw Steel on Fridays, and it's very much very much built around that, which being built around it or not being built around it has its ups and downs. It's ultimately a specific choice. But with that in mind, this is obviously this is coming off of the why can I the Tome of Intangible Treasures 2. Why did it take me that long to remember the name? I think the cold might be getting to me. But was it a case where some of the boons and charms that are going to be in it were born out of that, or was there a skeleton of the idea long before the boon and charm elements of Intangible Treasures?
No, I mean they're all going to be new for the adventure. So none of them are like, ones that I didn't get to or anything like that. The way that I've been handling making boons and charms for Intangible Treasures 2 actually is that I design the monsters first, and then I look at their abilities and I turn those into the boons and charms. So I'll probably take the same approach in this case, where we look at monster design, make the creatures, figure out what abilities they have, and then find a way of giving those to the players, basically.
Now, given that we're dealing with a specific style of adventure and a specific style of mystery, I would like to pick your brains on the idea of an Appendix N. Josh, Andy, are you familiar with the concept of Appendix N?
I'm not. No.
I don't think so. Maybe you've mentioned it before, but I don't. Like, it sounds familiar, but I don't remember what it is.
I may have, but to give a bit of a refresher, Appendix N was a section in very early D&D that listed a bunch of inspirational media or media to look at as reference for a given play style, tone, or whatnot, usually containing things like books, comic books, graphic novels, video games, films, etc., etc. Since then, Appendix N has kind of been used as a shorthand for a similar section depicting other kinds of media that might have a similar tone or style to take notes from. What would be the hypothetical Appendix N in Gravedigger's Harvest?
So a list of inspirations like books, authors, games, etc.
Yeah, it can be inspirational or reference, and anything's on the table when it comes to that. It's in some ways it's similar to the inspirational media section that's in almost every White Wolf game that I have.
Sure. So for me, it definitely has some elements of it's not a book or author or whatever, but part of the idea was inspired by, the black lung that coal miners get. And I really like, actually, I'm one of the few, I guess, but I really liked Candela Obscura from Darrington Press, and Vaesen with these sort of investigative mysteries with monsters doing strange, horrible things.
Yeah. I admittedly was a bit harsh on Candela Obscura when I did review it some time ago. It mostly had to do with the fact that I felt it played things a little too close to the chest. Like it was too mechanically speaking, it was too close to its inspirations, because the setting of Candela Obscura I actually like.
Yeah, I think the setting is fantastic. I think the world building is great, and the little adventures that they have in the back of the book, in my opinion, really give you the tools to learn how to write a compelling short mystery. Because each one is very simple, where it's like, you know, the hook, you know, the exploration, whatever, and each one gives you the specific reveal that you need to get to the next scene. And that kind of just sort of simple linkage is all you need for most things.
Yeah. Like I know they were inspired by Vaesen and Blaze in the Dark and 10 Candles. I think the problem they had was it was way too obvious. But that being said, when it comes to this idea of going into what very much feels like a mausoleum, I think you are planning on having a handful of maps for different areas, but is it a case where each major location that's within that pin board that's on the Kickstarter page is going to have its own map or its own visual rep?
I think it'll depend. In terms of the maps, for sure, any like combat area, right, is gonna have a map. That's the main purpose of the physical maps that we're gonna be making as part of the campaign, is to have those like nice printed battle maps. But I mean, I think Iris is going to be adding, illustrations of all of the locations and everything, probably, so that you'll at least have some visual reference for everything. One of our first stretch goals is to add more scenes and things like that. So
yeah. And speaking of stretch goals, I think you had mentioned that some of the ones that you have planned, at least in terms of either number of backers or in total amount, is to expand on this and use Gravedigger Harvest onto other games. I think Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Daggerheart were mentioned at least once as considerations.
Yeah, so one of our first backer count stretch goals is to make the adventure work with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. That's our first sort of system expansion goal, just because one, it's one of the most popular systems, aside from 5e, and also it's a system I'm pretty familiar with designing monsters for, and it's also going to be a very similar, design to, like, running a session of Pathfinder, in my experience, is basically the same as running a session of 5e. There are, mechanical differences and stuff, but the way the Pathfinder plays is still very much D&D. Whereas Drawsteel and Daggerheart, which are other systems that we're thinking about, wanting to convert this for, do have sort of a more unique play style, right? That would need a lot more work to sort of rewrite the adventure a little bit to work with, right?
Yeah, with Drawsteel, that would, between Drawsteel and Daggerheart, I think Drawsteel would be the easier. You can't say it, but I'm doing massive air quotes saying easier, because it's still going to be quite a lot of work, because you would have to convert some of the things from intangible treasures to or an equivalent as well.
Yeah,
Whereas
there's that. Yeah.
Something like Daggerheart is, because it's already heavily narrative, I think that would be easier and more difficult in certain ways. I realize that's a bit of a paradox, but that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think that for Daggerheart, one of the challenges will be finding ways to tie character story outcomes specifically to this mystery. And you can do that with, adventure hooks from the outset and like a character creation guidelines and sort of make it a little bit more of like a campaign frame. You can have the pitch and the touchstones and specific campaign mechanics and do a bit of a rewrite that way.
Right.
But the broad strokes of like the events and the NPCs and things like that, of course, will be the same.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, there are definitely challenges.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and with that in mind, what are you shooting for as far as a page count for the book, at the very least for the 5e version?
Yeah, it'll depend on how much we unlock. But I think at a minimum we were thinking somewhere between the 40 something to 60 something.
Mm-hmm.
The more we unlock, the more art obviously we can put in the book, and the more art tends to fill out more space. But it's not going to be a massive tome or anything, and that's helped keep the price down a lot as well. So
yeah, this is meant for 5th and 6th level players, so this isn't going to be one of the monstrosities that you see, say, Elderbrain come out with, because I swear to God, I have no idea how they do what they do.
right, it's a multi-session adventure, but it's not like a campaign, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess in that regard, I'd say lengthwise it'd be the equivalent of, say, a horror movie.
Well,
maybe like
I mean, it's probably going to take like 10 to 15 hours to play through.
Yeah, maybe more like a mini series or something.
Yeah. There's
I think a mini series is a good way to think about it.
Yeah, one of those streaming miniseries that's maybe no more than 10 episodes.
Yeah,
I can certainly see that. Especially since when you're dealing with horror, you don't want to overextend it. Especially since the more you extend it, the more you risk diminishing returns when it comes to things being scary. And I'm guessing that's why you chose level 5 and 6, because going higher than that, you might run the risk of the party becoming too powerful for the kind of tone you're going for.
There's also like a lot, really powerful divination magic, right? Like there's a certain point where mysteries in 5e can be solved with magic, and trying to write around that gets really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I mean, they're even just basic things. Once you get to level 9 or whatever, you can just revive people pretty easily. With Revivify, it's like, well, they just have to have died more than 10 minutes ago, and that's easy.
Or like 1 minute, I think.
Or whatever. Yeah, it just gets progressively harder the higher level players get to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to think of the parallel when it comes to the type of threats that you'd see in superhero universes. You have the street level stuff, you have the city level stuff, you have the national/global level stuff, and then you have the cosmic stuff. But it's difficult to develop a character through XP leveling or whatnot and have them stay at, say, street level.
Yeah, there's also a real challenge with designing mysteries that work for a party of high-level characters across many sessions, because the mystery is going to take more than one session to solve, but you're not going to necessarily be expending their resources session to session.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be sort of anticlimactic when you get to the end, if they're a really powerful high-level party, where they just blow up, whatever the villain is or whatever.
We've all played our fair share of console style RPGs. We're all very, very familiar with being way too overleveled for the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were overcautious and did more grinding than we probably should have.
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you mean I have 1,000 potions left over at the end of the game?
Oh, don't get me started on that. I have a
Read.
whole term called the 99 Megalixirs paradox for those players, whether it be in video game or tabletop, that are way too conservative with their consumables. Thinking, I can't use one of my Megalixirs, what if I need it for later? He says during the final boss of the campaign.
Yeah, that's a big reason why all of the charms, or almost all the charms, in both of the Intangible Treasures books wear off after 2 weeks, right? Because it's just like, you got to use this.
Yeah,
it's for this adventure.
I remember
You know.
praising the Thief games and the fact that you couldn't bring consumables over between missions. At every mission, you had to spend what gold you got in the last one to get consumables, with a neutral plate. Because
Yeah,
we all know that one person who will hold on to one healing potion until the heat death of the universe. Some people are that person, or have been that person at some time, at some point. You all can't see it, but I am raising my hand because I'd be a massive hypocrite if I didn't put myself on that particular pedestal.
yeah, I'm
So
I'm
funny.
really bad at doing that in video games for sure.
Mm-hmm. I've
But
seen.
it also, it increases the difficulty too. It's just like, well, I'm just never going to use these things. So
Yeah. I've had it in my own system that doing that kind of hoarding really is going to be all that helpful, because at the end of the quest, everything gets reset.
mm-hmm.
Well, not everything. You're not going straight back to level one at the end of the quest, but your consumables are dropping, and you only have so many you can bring with you. You can buy and store as much as you want, but only so many slots. But I suppose the worst offender of that kind of thing are the pack rat people in any Bethesda game ever, where they'll just grab anything and everything that isn't nailed down, and then be surprised that they're being encumbered.
Yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some people say that they're not that person, but I'm like, that sounds like someone who is. That sounds like what someone who is that person would say.
Yeah.
But
I guess when I played what is it called, Starfield?
mm-hmm.
I was better about it, because I'd already gone through Skyrim and been like, oh wait, I'm carrying 500 pounds of ore or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I have a random anvil in my inventory. It's worth 1 gold. Why do I have this?
Mm-hmm. But with that said, what would you be shooting for as far as a release window for Gravedigger's Harvest?
Yeah, we're aiming for a pretty quick turnaround, at least digitally. Just because it's gonna fulfill alongside Tome of Intangible Treasures 2, so it needs to be ready for print at the same time as that book, essentially. Yeah, it'll be a relatively quick turnaround, but it's a smaller project, so it should be not too bad for trying to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. All right, I can certainly get that. And I will most definitely be keeping an eye out on how it develops. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank both of you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens around here. And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And, of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Key